We advise all those over 70 with serious medical conditions against going on cruises, and we advise against international school trips. At some point in the next few weeks, we are likely to go further, and if someone in a household has those symptoms, we will be asking everyone in that household to stay at home. We're not introducing this measure yet for reasons Sir Patrick will explain, but I want to signal now that this is coming down the track. We are considering the question of banning major public events such as sporting fixtures, and the scientific advice, as we've said over the last couple of weeks, is that this banning such events will have little effect on the spread. But there is also the issue of the burden that such events can place on public services. So we're discussing these issues with colleagues in all parts of the United Kingdom, and we'll have more to say shortly about the timing of further action in that respect. At all stages, we have been guided by the science, and we will do the right thing at the right time. We are not, repeat not, closing schools now. The scientific advice is that this could do more harm than good at this time, but of course we're keeping this under review, and this again may change as the disease spreads. Schools should only close if they are specifically advised to do so, and that remains our advice.
Michael, if you went in a white suit and you ended up spreading the virus,
it can't be spreading.
You don't know. Well, how would you feel if you killed your grandma by going there?
I wouldn't want to kill my grandma. That's why I'm saying, could there needs to provide some protective clothing, what will protect people from the coronavirus.
What they need to look at is what type of clothing will be protective. They're not sure yet as to what's protective and what's not. So you just have to hang fire till they find out properly.
I know, but it's not good for anybody to sit in the house like me. No, at least I was doing something on Fridays.
I know.
But now,
I know.
I've nothing. I've nothing.
I know that. I know.
And, for one, it got me out to do a little bit of media. I just did it when I came home. It was more home at the time.
But you enjoyed doing your media as well,
It's just not fair.
But don't make it about you. This is about the old people at the moment. Don't make it about you, love.
I'm not.
It's the old people. We need to
I'm not. I'm just.
I know.
There's got to be something we can do. There's got to be something we can do.
Yeah, they'll find out.
Something to help care homes, hospitals and stuff. And the government as well.
The government and the scientists will find something that helps at some point.
Well, we need to hurry up though. There's so many people dying. We need to find something right this minute now.
Yeah.
There is no escaping the reality that these measures will cause severe disruption across our country for many months. The best scientific advice is that this will help us slow the disease and save lives. There will be detailed information available on the NHS website and from 111 online. But I want to stress something that's very important in the wake of what we're saying this afternoon. I urge people who think, in view of what we're saying about their potential symptoms, that they should stay at home. I urge them not to call 111, but to use the internet for information if they can. I also want, at this stage, to speak directly to older people, because this disease is particularly dangerous for you, for older people, even though the vast majority of older people will experience a mild to moderate illness. I know that many people will be very worried. And I think we should all be thinking about our elderly relatives. There is no escaping the reality that these measures will cause severe disruption across our country for many months. The best scientific advice is that this will help us slow the disease and save lives. There will be detailed information available on the NHS website and from 111 online. But I want to stress something that's very important in the wake of what we're saying this afternoon. I urge people who think, in view of what we're saying about their potential symptoms, that they should stay at home. I urge them not to call 111, but to use the internet for information if they can. I also want, at this stage, to speak directly. There is no escaping the reality that these measures will cause severe disruption across our country for many months. The best scientific advice is that this will help us slow the disease and save lives. There will be detailed information available on the NHS website and from 111 online. But I want to stress something that's very important in the wake of what we're saying this afternoon. I urge people who think, in view of what we're saying about their potential symptoms, that they should stay at home. I urge them not to call 111, but to use the internet for information if they can. I also want, at this stage,
this minute now, don't waste any more time. There's got to be something we can find. Even if it means the whole world coming together. Those who don't have jobs or anywhere, them people, all them, come together, come join together and make a protest, go on the streets and just have on cardboards and stuff, that we need something now. We need to find something in this world, what's in the air, what we can get rid of, and then we don't get any more coronavirus, or the next viruses that may come in generations.
I know, but at the moment,
there's loads of things we need to do it.
That's what they're trying to do. They want to stop it spreading, and they're trying to find ways.
I know they're doing the best they can, but they need to go faster.
It's the more vulnerable members of our family, our neighbours, and everything we can do to protect them over the next few months. We're going to need to mobilise millions of people to help and support each other. And I just want you to know that the government will do all we can to help you and your family during this period. We're not just going to be, as you saw yesterday, supporting the economy during this period. We will be providing money and many other forms of support and helping communities to support each other. And as we've done over the last few weeks, we will continue to provide, as soon as we have it, as much clear scientific and medical information as we can. So I'd like to end by repeating the two important messages with which you will become familiar. It is still vital, perhaps more vital than ever, that we remember to wash our hands. And lastly, of course, even if things seem tough now, just to remember that we will get through this. This country will get through this epidemic, just as it has got through many tougher experiences before, if we look out for each other and commit wholeheartedly to a full national effort. And I'd now like to I'd like to ask Sir Patrick Vallance, our Chief. I'd like to thank you for everything.
We'll be watching the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson with the latest in their phased approach to this coronavirus, saying that this is the delay phase is now being implemented. The main measure is that from tomorrow, if people in the UK have coronavirus symptoms, they are, in other words, a cough and a fever, they are to stay at home for at least 7 days. At this stage, the government is not considering closing schools, and he said the most dangerous period with the coronavirus is some weeks away, depending on the spread. Niamh Barker was here listening to that. So, as predicted, they're implementing this in phases, and it's just one notch up from what we had before.
Yes, what Boris Johnson clarified was that it's about doing the right thing at the right time. And the belief right now is that the UK doesn't need to do what other countries in Europe have done by banning large gatherings or telling schools and universities and nurseries to close. The belief here is that the scientific evidence says that those measures right now are not going to help. Nevertheless, the government has said that the containment stage has now passed. The focus now should be on delaying the spread of the virus until at least the summer months, where the country's National Health Service will be better poised to deal with possibly more people needing support.
But clearly an attempt also to address the fear element, because he said he did accept that many more families, he said, are going to lose loved ones before their time. So there will be people who will die from coronavirus, and particularly the emphasis is kind of reassuring older people, wasn't it?
Yeah, he spoke directly to older people. Whenever we hear about the impact of the coronavirus, we hear that for a large majority of people, it will be the symptoms will be quite light, that most certainly we're not talking about being hospitalised, but there is, of course, a huge section, or at least the British population, that are worried about the potential impact. People with underlying health issues, people that may have existing respiratory disorders, that may well find themselves being profoundly affected by this virus. So yeah, an important moment for Boris Johnson to speak directly to them.
And Niamh, just to broaden it out to the rest of Europe, quite different measures, and countries are at different stages and doing different things, aren't they?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And given the comparison to what Boris Johnson has said and what other countries are doing, perhaps there will be some concern and consternation here that more needs to be done. Will we look back at this time and say that the UK could and should have implemented bans on public gatherings or the closures of schools? We've seen those measures introduced in multiple countries. Only earlier today, Denmark, Norway, Lithuania, Ireland, Poland and the Czech Republic have introduced those measures, and clearly closing schools is not a decision to be taken lightly, because obviously parents will need to stay home to look after their children. That's going to have a domino effect on workplaces and the wider economy. So an important move that these countries are taking, but one that the UK right now doesn't believe it needs to take.
Niamh Barker, thank you very much indeed.
The majority of exams are mid-May to mid-June. If we're closed for that, it's going to be an absolute disaster, because we're either going to have 500,000 students miss their GCSEs or A-levels and not have them at all, in which case we're going to have to give students sort of predicted outcomes of their grades, or we're going to have to look at rescheduling GCSEs for the autumn term, which creates such a logistical logjam. It's going to stop students progressing to the next level. It doesn't bear thinking about. So, acting soon in the hope that we can get schools back up and running by the beginning of May is really kind of crucial. There's no scenario in which this is going to be great for families or students or teachers. My worry is more the effect of not closing schools, where schools are really a hotbed of viral contagion, and I worry about students coming out of schools in the holidays, visiting relatives, and really potentially driving the spread of the infection.
To my back teeth. I should be a politician, me the way I'm going. Well, I'm talking like a politician. I don't even watch the bleeding programme, and I bloody know.
It's a new virus that nobody knows anything about, love, and that's the problem.
I know, but
Anything about it.
But they do something for cigarettes, don't they? When people are dying off cigarettes and stuff.
Yeah.
If they can do that.
But they've done that through research over years and years and years. They've only found out.
But they already knew this.
No, they've only found out about this virus recently. So that's why.
Yeah, but they need to have something in the air what can click something and it just spreads everywhere and it just stops. China have got that spraying thing already.
Yeah, but Michael,
no, but at least they're trying. That's what we need in this country. It might just work.
Do you know there's been 50,000 people? Do you know there's been 50,000 people died in China?
Yeah, I know.
So it's not fucking worked. Oh, they've been spraying that stuff about and it's not worked.
Yeah, but do we know what's in it? Are they telling us what's in it?
Well, I don't know.
Do we need to help?
Michael.
Do we need to help different national nations and different governments?
No,
Chinese governments or
they
something?
They all speak to each other. They all
Do we
help each other.
We need to find something though. We need to find something to help.
Michael, I know. We need something to help our own people. That's what we need.
We do.
And they're trying.
Yes, I know. The scientists need to go round the care homes. The scientists need to go round care homes and hospitals.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
Everybody needs to keep away from it.
No, because the scientists have protective clothing. What they could provide for us.
The scientists
What
might
they could
think-
provide for
The
us.
scientists might, even the scientists can
And
catch it.
to making it so impossible for us to even live in this country, and then there's people dying, China and everybody else.
I know. It's difficult. It's because it's a new virus and nobody knows anything about
Whatever,
it.
if it's a dose or something, what's inside it, what get rid of it? They need to up the dose like they do with patients.
Listen.
Up the dose,
Listen.
make it
Michael,
extra.
if it's flu, there's a jab for flu and it stops people dying of it, right? They've not got
We
an
know that.
injection for this.
We know that.
They've not got an injection for this yet. They're trying to find something that'll help, and eventually they will, and it'll cure it.
Have they not looked in the stuff what they've got for flu virus and
Because it's a
stuff?
completely different one.
The
Flu doesn't help. Flu virus
flu
doesn't
jab
help
that
it.
we have at the moment, what we've got.
Doesn't help it.
They need to look inside that, what they've got in that, and see if they can up the dose in that, so the needle will have to be a bit longer.
They're all
So the more-
trying. It's not about the needle being longer. They're trying to find something that will help.
It might work in my favour if you will help me to get a petition.
An outbreak of coronavirus infections in the Wuhan province of China in December 2019 is threatening to emerge as the next pandemic. At current count, over 40,000 cases and 600 deaths have been reported in China and over 300 cases in 25 other countries. Unofficial modeling studies by a number of institutions claim infections of over 150,000. The alarming speed of transmission is in part because the virus spreads through the air and by touch. Using the power of 3D medical animation, this video covers what is a pandemic, how this coronavirus is spreading, how coronavirus attacks the body, and what are recommended precautions to take for protecting against epidemics. Pandemics indicate outbreaks of disease that spread to cover an entire region or the world. A pandemic can result in massive loss of life. In the last 100 years, there have been 4 global pandemics, the worst with the 1918 influenza pandemic, resulting in an estimated 50 to 100 million deaths. While no global pandemic has been born from the family of coronavirus, 2 regional epidemics have resulted from this family of viruses. They include severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, and Middle East respiratory syndrome, or MERS, in 2001 to 2003 and 2012 to 2015, respectively, and resulted in over 1,500 deaths. Much is yet to be known about the 2019 novel coronavirus. An early study of 99 infected showed a high mortality of 11%, similar to SARS, and ICU admission rates of 23%. An earlier study described a virus pathology with an 8-day incubation period, a week of infection, followed by a potential escalation to hospitalization and intensive care over another 8 to 10 days. Other indications put the mortality rate closer to 4%. The virus has, as of February 6th, over 40,000 confirmed cases in China alone, with almost 200 cases in over 25 other countries. However, Dr. Jonathan Reed from the UK believes that the numbers of actual cases is far greater and has estimated between 170 to 300,000 by February 9th. This is because symptoms can be mild and escape reporting and testing. What's more, in stark contrast to SARS, some patients may be infectious in their incubation period before the onset of any symptoms. Mechanism of action of coronavirus. The 2019 novel coronavirus is a newly discovered strain from the coronavirus family that causes respiratory disease. Humans have long been infected by coronavirus, as it is one of those responsible for the common cold. It is a contagious viral infection spread through inhalation or ingestion of viral droplets. As a result, coughing and sneezing and touching infected surfaces are primary sources of infection. The structure of coronavirus has multiple parts. Inside the virus lies the genetic encoding that allows the virus to hijack human cells and turn them into virus factories. A protein encapsulates the genetic material known as the viral envelope. On the surface of the viron are S and HE proteins. The structure of the 2019 novel coronavirus is a mutation. For more information on this, see the link below. The large S glycoproteins are used by the virus to gain entry to human cells. They most likely attach to angiotensin-converting enzyme 2 receptors on the cell membrane, allowing the virus entry. The exact mechanism for this is not known. Most likely, as shown here, the human cell ingests the virus in a process known as endocytosis. Once inside the cytoplasm, the endosome opens to reveal the virus's genetic material, a single-stranded RNA. The virus hijacks the cell's machinery to replicate the RNA in N proteins and uses the endoplasmic reticulum to form its M protein outer layer and the all-important S protein. After replication, the virus is carried by the Golgi bodies out of the cell in a process known as exocytosis, so that it can infect other cells. Meanwhile, the stress of viral production on the endoplasmic reticulum eventually leads to apoptosis, or cell death. It should be noted that the mechanism of action for 2019 novel coronavirus is unknown. However, scientists in China have sequenced the genome, while others have used the sequencing to visualize the structure. There is currently no cure or vaccine for the 2019 novel coronavirus, and treatment is only supportive. Therefore, preventing transmission is paramount. As an airborne virus, recommended precautions are similar to those for preventing the flu. This includes washing hands regularly with soap and water for 20 seconds, covering sneezes and coughs with the inside of the elbow, refraining from touching high-contact surfaces like railings and doorknobs. If you use tissues, throw them away immediately. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. For more info on precautions and best practices, see the list of references below. The pandemic risk of the novel coronavirus is very real. However, biology has advanced greatly in the 15 years since SARS, and so has communication between biologists and governments. China has taken monumental efforts to contain the spread of the virus. Also, some existing and experimental drugs are offering hope for treating the infection and improving outcomes. But even still, infection control habits remain paramount if humanity is to stave off a full pandemic. For further information, see the resources listed here.
The majority of exams are mid-May to mid-June. If we're closed for that, it's going to be an absolute disaster, because we're either going to have 500,000 students miss their GCSEs or A-levels and not have them at all, in which case we're going to have to give students sort of predicted outcomes of their grades, or we're going to have to look at rescheduling GCSEs for the autumn term, which creates such a logistical logjam. It's going to stop students progressing to the next level. It doesn't bear thinking about. So, acting soon in the hope that we can get schools back up and running by the beginning of May is really kind of crucial. There's no scenario in which this is going to be great for families or students or teachers. My worry is more the effect of not closing schools, where schools are really a hotbed of viral contagion, and I worry about students coming out of schools in the holidays, visiting relatives, and really potentially driving the spread of the infection. That said, academically, of course, if schools close early, they're going to lose a week or two of teaching time, and for students in Year 11, Year 13 facing terminal exams, those are crucial teaching weeks. So it's a worry. And of course, if students are left to their own devices at home, some will prosper, do just fine because they're able to have a disciplined revision schedule, or they've got the resources to revise. Others, I think, may be at a real disadvantage. Schools and teachers have been really proactive about this kind of thing for years, because for years, schools have been embracing the use of education technology. They've been embracing different revision and learning techniques, building knowledge organizers, revision guides for their students. So in a way, schools have always been working towards getting students to be self-sufficient and self-directed in their study. Now is really the test of all that work, and I'm fairly optimistic. I mean, the work schools do to prepare students to revise better is really impressive. So lots of them use EdTech. Like ours, I think Tasmai is used in hundreds of schools, but there are lots of other products out there that help students, interactive textbooks or quizzing systems or, language practice. So resources are already there in the majority of schools. Lots of other schools are, grabbing what they can before the day of closure comes. And I'm hoping generally students will be pretty well provided for. Schools are now quite forward thinking and very organised, and as able to mitigate the effects of this as ever they would have been in the past. So, I wouldn't say I'm optimistic, but I'm less pessimistic than had we had this. If SARS had happened here 10 years ago, we would have been in a far worse position.
Oh, they've been spraying that stuff about and it's not worked.
Yeah, but do we know what's in it? As they telling us what's in it?
Well, I don't know.
Do we need to help?
Michael.
Do we need to help different national nations and different governments?
No,
Chinese governments or something?
They all speak to each other. They all
Do we
help
need
each other.
We need to find something though. We need
And
to
we
find
will.
something
Michael,
to help the
Michael,
world.
I know. We need something to help our old people. That's what we need.
We do.
And they're trying.
Yeah, but they're not asking the public, are they? Like us, who may come in contact with it. Corona, golden ice,
Michael,
stuff like that.
Well,
They have not gone round.
it's the scientists.
Yes,
They
I know.
they can-
The scientists need to go round the corona. The scientists need to go round corona and hospitals.
No, they
and
don't.
yes, they do.
Everybody needs to keep away from it.
No, because the scientists have protective clothing.
The
What they
scientists-
could provide for us.
But the scientists
What
might
they
have
could
it.
provide for
The
us.
scientists might, even the scientists can catch
And
it.
to making it so impossible for us to even live in this country, and then there's people dying,
I know, love.
China and everybody else.
I know. It's difficult. It's because it's a new virus and nobody knows anything about
Whatever,
it.
if it's a dose or something, what's inside it, but get rid of it. They need to up the dose like they do with patients.
Listen.
Up the dose,
Listen.
make it
Michael,
extra.
if it's flu, there's a jab for flu and it stops people dying of it, right? They've not got
We
an
know that.
injection for this.
We know that.
They've not got an injection for this yet. They're trying to find something that'll help. And eventually they will, and it'll cure it.
Have they not looked in the stuff what they've got for flu virus
Well,
and
it's a
stuff?
completely different one.
The
Flu doesn't help. Flu virus
the flu
doesn't
jab
help
that
it.
we have at the moment, what
Doesn't help it.
we've got.
Doesn't help it.
They need to look inside that what they've got in that and see if they can up the dose in that so they can so the needle has to be a bit longer.
They're all
So they're all-
trying. It's not about the needle being longer. They're trying to find something that will help.
It might work in my favour if you will help me to get a petition going.
It's not.
I really, seriously, even if it doesn't work, at least I'm trying my best.
Sure.
And I'm going out, shouting the odds on a microphone, do this, do that.
But
that's what we
We have
need.
to talk sense as well. You know.
And I just really hope people on YouTube listen to this.
I know.
I really hope people on YouTube listen to this, because this is really, really, really important.
Of course it is. Because there's loads of people dying, and it needs
We
something.
need to find something.
We do, but you're going to have to be patient because if we
There's
get.
only so many people that can be patient.
Just listen to me. You've asking me for my advice, right? People need to be patient because if we put something together that's not right, it'll kill more people than it will save them. We need to get it right before we can save people, and that's what they're all trying to do together. But as a team,
But it might speed up the process if we get a petition going.
I don't think
All those lot,
Michael, they're all
get different
trying,
parts
though.
of different, like,
We know nothing about it.
like for example, it might sound a bit silly if we go ahead and do this, but go on a field and get different parts of grass, rip it up, see what's in that. There might be something in the grass that might help us.
There might be something in the grass that causes it. We don't know, do we?
So, you need to start looking in fields.
They will do. They'll be doing all this research.
No.
You know.
I bet they've not thought of that one though. Of all the things that they said they're going to do, they've not thought of that one.
They'll be doing a lot of research because it can pass through her.
Yeah,
right. Not her through.
Maybe they need a machine what sucks the herb in.
Yeah. It can pass through touch. It can pass through.
I know it can.
Saliva. It can pass through snot.
Right. Well,
it can pass through loads of things. Well, they'll be doing loads of tests to try and find out how they can get a cure for it, love. They're not just sitting about on their ass, just waiting for everybody to die. They're trying their best for
I know, and I'm not saying they're not. They are doing their best.
I know, love.
They are.
Yeah. And it's,
we need to get out there.
Are really clever people.
We need to get out there. We need to get as many people involved in the world.
I know that.
And I'm autistic myself, and it frustrates me even worse because of my conditions and stuff like that.
But we can't rush things, because if we rush things, we can kill more people than save them. You know, they've got to get it right.
Listen, it's all right then saying we've got to get it right.
Well, yeah.
We can get it extra double right.
No, we can't.
There's that many people at work could help them.
We don't know anything about chemicals and stuff, what can help people.
Why don't they get a conference for somewhere in England and here?
They've got loads of clever
Why
people.
don't they get camera people who come to this area, Wigan area, Lee area, Abington area, Tilsley area, different parts, asking different people on their views, what do they want? What do we want? Tell us what you want us to do to make it better, this coronavirus.
They'll be doing all sorts of trying to sort it out in all areas, because every area is different, you know.
I know, and that's all. Maybe they should get some camera crew down, and I don't know, they should do something.
They're trying their best, man, yeah.
And there's that many videos on YouTube and everything that other people has done up to now. There's just so many to watch and keep up with.
But you've just got to understand that they're trying their bloody best here, because the country, the politicians don't want everybody died, do they?
No, they don't.
They're trying their best, man. They're trying their best, and they're trying to put in place things that will help kill less people with it, you know, and try and find a cure for it. They're trying their utmost. They're trying their best. You know, it must be so difficult when they know that there's so much pressure on because so many people are dying, and they don't really know as to, you know, how they're going to deal with it. Michael Lemsit's help with flu. They don't help with coronavirus.
Why don't they shouldn't make boxes like that?
Well, that's
for coronaviruses.
They don't know how they can cure it yet. Once they do, they'll make things like that that help cure it. But until then, they can't.
They've probably got certain side effects in them packets that they are around now.
Yeah. But it won't help coronavirus. It's
all
completely different.
All you need to do is look at the sugar inside it, what makes Lemsip boxes or whatever you have, and they need to compare that with something else.
Hello, light yourself a cigarette, anyway. Come on.
What, and then garner even more?
No, it'll just help you unwind a bit. Because I need a bit wound up. But it's understandable, Michael, because it's a very difficult subject.
I'm just missing the friends and stuff from work. I'm just really am.
I know. But what you have to think about, you can't go to work for one day. Some people can't go to work for for months and months.
It's different for them because they're being paid. So as soon as they go back to work, they're going to get paid.
Yeah, but when
the money goes into the bank.
But by then, they'll be in so much debt that they'll probably lose their house. They'll probably lose all sorts because they're in so much debt. It's a shame for a lot of people who are going to really struggle in terms of not earning any money to pay the bills and pay the mortgage. You know, to live as they would normally do. It must be so difficult and frightening for people.
But we could do something seriously. Help the government. We should help the government.
Everybody's trying to help the government.
We all need, even if we're not a politician ourselves, we act like a politician because we're talking like a politician as we talk about different things.
I know.
So maybe it's our chance to fit in the Crown Court. So even if we all can't fit in there because there's that many of us in the world,
Well, they won't all fit in there.
get a camera stream going. So in different areas.
But it's about the best way
Get a
of cure. Nothing else.
So,
it's all about
so
cure.
like now, for instance, get somebody in someone's house, like my house now, this one, like I'm in now, and get cameras in here, and then when the Crown Court comes on, we can see ourselves in our own house.
Michael.
Don't know, but
Yeah, well, it's about
showing that
cure.
showing that we are isolated in houses here.
Michael,
we
you're
are
isolated anywhere, love.
No. Both men.
I know. I could pick it up inside. Michael, anybody can pick it up, love. You can pick it up inside. I could bring it in. Chris could bring it in. Nick
No,
could
but
bring
at
it in.
least you're a bit
Don't
safer
know.
inside. There's more chance of you're not getting it because you put heating on full whack.
No, it doesn't make any difference, Michael. If you're going to catch it, you're going to catch it. It doesn't matter whether you're inside or outside. Nobody knows properly how it's spread.
Make a drink or something. What you can buy from shops.
Well, that's they'll be
As a temporary offer.
Yeah, but they don't know.
Just for
They
keeping
can't
it.
try things. They've got to know that something.
Get a collection box going.
Michael,
Put some money in a box
they could,
and go around the
Listen.
streets collecting.
but they could make something. They could make something right.
It might not
They
work.
could cure it.
And it might
And
not
it
work.
might make it worse. They've got to be, but they've got to be right before they put something in place.
But
Because
it might do because they might have a machine what they tested on.
could kill more people, so that's why they have to be careful. I mean, it must be
I'm
such a
saying the
difficult
drugs that
position, yeah.
people are on now, ones that you can take for like, I know this is nothing to do with coronavirus, but like epilepsy, for instance, there could be something in that, we don't know.
And they'll find out at
And
some
it could
point.
be making people's brain even worse.
Yeah, but they'll find out at some point what is the best medication to cure coronavirus. They will get something. They call it a vaccine, right? A vaccine is something that cures an illness, and they will at some point. The world, who are all trying, America,
We might all
us,
be dead by the
Russia,
time they
China.
find out.
No,
That's
Michael,
why I'm saying
Michael,
we all need to be
Michael,
quick.
Michael, the majority of people will get coronavirus that won't affect them, right? All it'll do is give you a bit of a temperature or a bit of a sore throat
Yeah.
and a cough, but then it'll go away,
Yeah,
right? But
that's not good because it'll come back.
no, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Once you've had it, you're immune to it. You don't get it again, right?
Coronavirus?
Yeah. If
If
you've
you
had
die
it,
from it.
no, only the elderly with medical problems who've got bad lungs or who've got diabetes or who've got chest problems or who've got cancer. It's all people who've got medical conditions who die from it. Nobody healthy like me or you will die from it because we are strong enough to fight it, and it's just like a flu bug to us, but to the elderly and the people who've got medical problems, it can kill them. So to us, we can get it and it'll go away. But the problem is we might pass it on, and that's the problem.
Work is going there because they have work.
Yeah.
They've no choice.
No.
They have to go in
Correct.
because there's nobody for when
I know. Yeah.
do personal care.
Correct. Yeah.
Need somebody who's got experience who can do it.
Of course, yeah. But what you have to realise is it's the elderly who are most at risk from dying, not us. We're not.
But it could appear eventually.
No, it doesn't. They know that. That's one thing they do know, that it's people who've got medical problems. If they catch it, there's a strong chance that they'll die, right?
What about old people who can still work?
Yes.
Who working care?
No, old people are fine. Yeah, but what they'll do, they're like us. The old people who don't have medical conditions will get a temperature, a bit of a cough, and then it'll go. Like us. It's the ones who've got medical problems who struggle. Not us. Not the elderly.
I have got health problems. Fancy myself.
Yeah, but you've not got loads of physical health problems, Michael. Yeah, you've got mental problems and you've got autism, but that doesn't have any effect on the coronavirus. It's just serious physical conditions like asthma.
Well, I used to
chest
have it.
problems. You don't anymore.
I used to have asthma.
Yeah.
It
Michael, I used to have asthma as a kid. Joe used to have asthma as a kid.
I'm more of a chance of a risk of it coming back.
No,
that's small.
No, it doesn't come back because you smoke. Alright? If it was going to come back when you were smoking, it'd come back just because you smoke, not because you've got coronavirus.
But my mum did say to me though, keep on smoking, your asthma will come back.
Your mum just tried frightening to stopping you smoking, that's all.
No, but she's a nurse, she knows.
Yeah, but she's trying frightening to stop you smoking, love.
Well, it is, to a point.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you don't smoke that many now anyway.
Well, I'm trying not to. I'm trying to save as much money as possible. I don't know. I'm trying to save up for this drone as well.
I want to get you medication.
Yeah. Well, so it gets sorted out. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and comment below. Thank you.
I don't always find it easy, but I respect the scrutiny role that the media has in this, and I respect, and I said this in Parliament yesterday, the vital scrutiny role that the other parties have in this. This is not a normal situation. We are all working at pace, we are all dealing with difficult issues in an unprecedented situation. We will not always get things right, and when that happens, we want to rectify it as quickly as possible. Everybody is acting in utter good faith right now, trying to do the right thing. So I say in all sincerity, if these things are brought to my attention, I'm sure the Chief Medical Officer will say the same, we will work to rectify these things as quickly as possible. I don't know, Catherine, if you want to add anything.
And we've had concerns flagged from not just the Scottish Ambulance Service. We realise that the supply of masks, the correct masks, there has been some further work done with guidance as to which healthcare workers during which procedures need which types of masks. We are addressing it. There are more supplies in train. I would absolutely echo the First Minister that we want to protect our frontline staff.
Can I say one
million through our supply chains, and we need customers, employees and businesses all to work together to be there to come out of the other side of this.
All right, Mark Tanzer, Helen Dickinson, I'm afraid we're out of time. Thanks to both of you for speaking to me. Thank you. Now, the efforts of governments and central banks around the world does not appear to be having the desired effect in calming markets. It seems to become extraordinarily and disturbingly normal to say it's the FTSE 100 is off another 5% today. Well, here's a picture right now in New York. The Dow Jones Industrial Average currently down 5.88%. So another gut-churning day. The Dow has traded within a 1,000-point band every day for the last week. Elsewhere, European equities have been in negative territory since the opening here today, and the declines have intensified as the session has gone on. All of the major indices currently lower, as you can see there. The FTSE 100 currently off by some 4.5%. The biggest faller is the aircraft components maker Meggitt, which is down by 20%, while the online estate agency Rightmove is down by 17%. There are a handful of standout gainers. You heard Helen Dickinson talking about retailers there. Well, Sainsbury's is up by nearly 12%. Morrison's, the other supermarket operator, and Kingfisher, the owner of B&Q, those are all up sharply after the Chancellor extended the business rates holiday he announced in last week's budget to all retailers. Outside the FTSE, National Express is down by 39% right now. That is on concerns over a drop in travel. It's been a major move in the oil price today. Fell to its lowest level since January 2016. A barrel of Brent crude right now, currently $26.76 a barrel, down by nearly 7%. Lots to talk about on the foreign exchange markets too. Some interesting moves there. A number of currencies coming under pressure. The Aussie dollar has fallen to its lowest level for 17 years on concerns over recession down under, while the Russian ruble is at a 4-year low due to falling oil prices here. The pound is at its lowest level since 1985 against the US dollar, down there, as you can see, 20%. Well, I've turned now to Oanda and its chief market analyst, Craig Earnham. Craig, welcome to you. I've been having emails from viewers all morning about this. Why is the pound falling so sharply against the dollar and the euro?
Well, I think against the dollar in particular, this has a lot to do with two things. I think one is a $1.2 trillion potential stimulus package. The dollar's performing well against all currencies, not just the US dollar. And the other thing as well is it seems that we have just seen a general bounce in US Treasury yields over the course of the last week or so. Whether that is a potential worrying sign, maybe potential higher funding costs, a tighter credit market, that could be something to keep an eye on. But it seems to be lifting Treasury yields and the dollar along with it. So I think with regards to the UK, we are still very much in the early stages. And it does seem that things are starting to escalate quite rapidly. The reason why we're seeing such a dramatic response from the Treasury and from the Prime Minister is because that their scenarios, their base case scenarios, have got so much worse over the course of the last week. So potentially that's one of the things which is really dragging on the pound.
I mean, Craig, I've seen some commentary this morning suggesting that all of this coronavirus upheaval is potentially going to kick Brexit negotiations into the long grass, and that might be another reason why the pound is off against the euro, for example.
I mean, you could argue that that's a good thing. The idea that we could potentially still be sticking to the same deadline seems utterly ludicrous to me. We were thinking that this was already an extremely ambitious deadline. It was a political deadline, not a deadline based on particular common sense. So this idea that we're going to deal with the coronavirus, move past the coronavirus, and straight into Brexit negotiations, leave by the end of this year, it just seems utterly ridiculous, to be honest, at this stage. So any delay to Brexit for me is a positive thing, certainly not a negative.
Craig, just seen some breaking news, which is that the US-Canada border is going to be closed to non-essential travel. Why is Wall Street selling off, given that it was so solid yesterday after the Trump stimulus package was announced?
Well, I think it's important that we don't get too carried away with these bounces that we are seeing in the markets. First and foremost, any move in the markets right now is a huge move. Just a week ago, the US stock market, Wall Street, bounced 10% on the Friday, only to have its worst, second or third worst trading day ever on the Monday. These wild swings in the markets are just what we have become accustomed to. In terms of why they're falling in the immediate aftermath of that bounce yesterday on the back of that big fiscal stimulus package, I think it just all comes back to the same thing. The fiscal stimulus package, these measures taken by central banks, these are good for the economies in the medium to longer term. It means that businesses can keep afloat. It means that we have a chance at a bounce back later this year. The economy has a chance to recover. Unemployment has a chance to remain low. But in the near term, we still have an enormous amount of uncertainty. The old adage goes, markets hate uncertainty. At the moment, we're navigating completely blind. We don't know how bad it's going to get. We don't know how long it's going to last. And I think that's why, from a market's perspective, we're kind of looking past these stimulus measures and focusing on the here and now, because with every passing week, the economic impact becomes that much more severe.
All right, Craig, thanks for that. And just to repeat that news that's broken in the last few moments, which is that the US-Canada border has been closed to non-essential travel. I gather Donald Trump will be speaking later on this afternoon. Meanwhile, we can bring you some more breaking news courtesy of our city editor, Mark Kleiman, who joins me now on the phone. Mark, what have you heard?
Yes, Ian, another sign of the times in the retail sector as chains try to adjust to the strains on their cash flow caused by the COVID-19 outbreak. What I've learned this lunchtime is that Kingfisher, the UK's biggest DIY retailer, is to open talks with landlords in the coming days about overturning the decades-old model of paying its rent bill quarterly in advance. And sources are telling me that Kingfisher, which owns the B&Q and Screwfix direct chains, wants to switch to monthly payments in an effort to conserve cash, and that will make Ian the company the latest in a string of retailers to see restructurings of their payments to landlords and other creditors. Some like Debenhams are now looking to avoid paying their rent for 5 months altogether. Obviously, retailers, as you were pointing out there, will be helped by the business rates holiday announced by the Chancellor, which is soon out yesterday. But in turn, this move by Kingfisher also underlined the growing pressure on commercial landlords, with footfall expected to slump even further in shopping centres during the coming weeks.
All right, Mark, thanks for that. Just bring you the latest from Wall Street. The Dow Jones now down 5.7%, the S&P 500 a similar sum, the Nasdaq is off 4.5% right now. Some other news, the Spanish owner of the Zara fashion chain said today that sales during the first 16 days of March were down 24% on the same period a year ago. Inditex said that as of today it has had to temporarily close 3,785 stores in 39 markets, and this includes all of its stores in Spain. The company is taking a provision of €287 million to reflect a drop in the value of its spring and summer inventory due to the COVID-19 outbreak. But it insisted its online sales were continuing and said that its supply chain was functioning normally. Shares of Pendragon have fallen by 14% to an 11-year low after the UK's biggest motor dealer warned it was too early to say what the impact of the COVID-19 outbreak would be. Well, the company, which owns the Evans, Hulshaw and Stratstone brands, said that while it expected no disruption to its supply of new vehicles until the autumn, the virus would hit the willingness of customers to visit its dealerships. The company reported a full-year pre-tax loss of £16.4 million. That was down from profits of £47.8 million in 2018 after demand for cars slumped during all the political uncertainty last year. And a number of the UK's best-known fund managers have suspended trading in their property funds due to upheaval in the markets. Both Kames Capital and Janus Henderson announced overnight they were suspending trading in their funds. The decision follows a similar move from M&G at the end of last year. This morning, Aviva Investors said it too was suspending its property fund, adding the independent value of the Aviva Investors UK Property Fund has expressed material uncertainty over their valuation of the scheme property. Staff in the NHS are facing unprecedented pressure in coming weeks and months as COVID-19 cases increase and peak, with the likes of Pret-a-Manger and Lyon offering 50% discounts to all health service workers during the crisis. But many nurses and other frontline staff currently wait weeks to be paid by NHS trusts. Well, now new technology means that they could be paid daily for shifts they work, and the company behind the payment platform says it will provide it free to the National Health Service. That company is Greensill, and I was hoping very much to be joined by its founder, Lex Greensill, but I gather we have a few technical details, so we will bring you that interview just as soon as we can. In the meantime, I can bring you a bit more breaking news, which I think we're hearing any time now. As I say, earlier on, we're hearing from the Foreign Office. There's a Foreign Office statement on Spain travel advice. A Foreign Colonial Office spokesperson has said the Spanish government has confirmed that all hotels will close in Spain from Tuesday, the 24th of March. We therefore advise British travellers in Spain to contact their tour operator or airline as soon as possible to arrange their return journey home before this date. So that is a warning there from British tourists that they ought to try and return to the UK by March the 24th. Spanish government ordering now that hotels must close by next week. So all British travellers currently on holiday in Spain urged to return as quickly as possible, and by no later than Tuesday next week. Britain should contact their travel operator right now. Check the website of their airlines or ferry companies for further advice. More on that throughout the afternoon here on Sky News. In the meantime, let me bring you the latest from the markets. Obviously, it's a very, very fluid position there. Right now, the FTSE 100 down some 4%. The DAX in Germany down by 5.3%. We had a profits warning in Germany today from BMW, the car manufacturer. The CAC 40 in France is currently some 5.6% lower. And the MIB in Milan, a bit of an outlier there. It's off 2%. Obviously, the MIB got smacked last week very heavily. I can tell you some of the big fallers in Wall Street, by the way. Coca-Cola in the US currently trading down by some 9%. Obviously, we're seeing some big sell-offs right now in consumer brands. Let me show you Sainsbury's. That's the big gainer here in the FTSE 100. Sainsbury's ahead by nearly 12%, as you can see there. That obviously reflects the fact that the Chancellor Rishi Sunak last night extended the business rates holiday to all retailers. That's benefited the likes of Kingfisher, the owner of B&Q here, who Mark Clymer was talking about just a moment ago. Dow Jones Industrial Average right now down some 5.25%. It's holding on to that 20,000 level right now. Outside the FTSE, again, I should mention some of the fallers we've seen there. National Express, one of the biggies, off by some 39% on a collapse in travel. The FTSE Mid 250 itself down by some 6% there of 800 points. Really is a worrying position. We're seeing this right across the piece every day now. And I should again mention to you the oil price, barrel of Brent crude, obviously sharply lower there, down some 5.75%. Well, I have another bit of breaking news to bring you, which is that the Treasury has asked the EU to scrap state aid rules to fund its rates cuts. The government obviously has written to the European Union asking it to end the state aid rules that ban ministers from handing over more than €200,000, £185,000 to businesses. That is on the Press Association Newswire. Treasury officials have notified the European Commission that they intend to disapply rules appertaining to state aid, as they expect approval to be granted. According to a government source, councils have also been informed that they should assume the Commission will grant the move and can begin informing businesses from which they collect rates. Well, that move, of course, follows Rishi Sunak's announcement last night, announcing a business rates holiday for all retailers, pubs, bars and others affected by the coronavirus pandemic. On Wednesday, some retailers questioning how the payment holiday will work in practice. You obviously heard those comments from Helen Dickinson from the British Retail Consortium earlier on today. And obviously the reason the UK has to do this is because while the UK has now formally left the EU, we remain in the transition period. Getting a bit of reaction to that from the real estate agents, Traalters Group, saying that will be very helpful for businesses. Bring you the very latest now on the Wall Street situation. The Dow Jones now currently down some 5.89%, so it's kind of holding on to those losses really. Currently 20,200. I'm going to bring you a quick look at the weather, which it will no doubt be of interest. Southern Britain currently mostly cloudy with outbreaks of rain sinking south, while the northwest can expect showers. It will be cold and windy in the north, much milder and calmer in the south. Wales and central England will see outbreaks of rain, mostly clear by late afternoon, while East Anglia in the southwest will see a little patchy rain moving in. The southeast will be dry into the evening elsewhere. Ireland, Northern Ireland and Northern Britain will be mostly dry with good sunny spells, but there'll be blustery showers in the far north and northwest, wintry on the Scottish mountains. Southern England will see further patchy, mostly light rain overnight, with heavier, more prolonged outbreaks moving into the southwest towards morning. Southeast England may stay dry elsewhere. Well, that is that. Bit of the markets. Just to remind you of the breaking news that I brought you early on in the programme, the US-Canada border is going to be closed to non-essential travel. We'll be hearing from Donald Trump later. But in the meantime, more and more people are working from home. It's certainly happening here in Sky News. The Prime Minister has told all of those who can do to do so. It means that technology that helps people to do so is more crucial than ever. Well, I can speak now to Stuart Templeton, who's head of UK for Slack, and to Johnny Baffarhat, who founded the online event platform Hopin. Both of us join me now live from central London. Stuart, let me go to you first. What sort of uptick in use have you seen?
We are seeing a significant uptick currently, as perhaps you would expect. I think for some time now, many employees have been seeking a digital future in the way that they work, and of course we're seeing that now. But equally, it's a very difficult time for many people, and we recognise that, and we feel a very significant responsibility, and hence we made the decision to close our offices this week, and we've been working from home for longer still to ensure that our business continuity is in place, and hence we can look after our customers and enable them to be successful as you would expect it.
Johnny, how can these sort of events replicate a real-life event? I mean, if you're in a physical meeting, I mean, there are all sorts of hidden advantages. You might bump into someone who might become a useful contact in the future. You can't really do that via the services you're providing, can you?
Actually, that's what we're trying to do from our product. So, as you know, traditionally an online event is usually just a stream in, but Hopin's focused on engagement and networking. And so those bump-ins that you get in real life, that's exactly the product that we've created it for. People who want to connect and network at these online events, and we do that through a mix of the technologies that we use.
All right, Johnny Baffarhat, Stuart Templeton, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. I'm sorry that was so snatched. And I apologise also for the fact that we couldn't bring you Lex Greensill. I think we're having all sorts of comms issues today. But anyway, we carry on. I can tell you the Dow Jones has just gone below 20,000. You've been watching Inking Live. There's lots more on the business pages of the Sky News website. I'll be back tomorrow. Hope very much to see you then. Sarah Hewson's coming up next. Do stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching. Cheerio.
One thing you know.
Appeal Home Shading can bring a classical touch to your home. From perfectly tuned window blinds and bifold door blinds to hitting the right notes for gable end blinds, conservatory.
This is the Sarah Jamie Show with me, Sarah Hewson. The top stories today. Boris Johnson says a decision on school closures will be made imminently as MPs are told to stay away from Prime Minister's questions. Completely unparalleled times. The new governor of the Bank of England says he won't rule out any measures to protect the economy. It comes as the number of cases of COVID-19 worldwide passes 200,000. And Glastonbury becomes the latest major event to fall victim to the outbreak. Good afternoon. Boris Johnson has told MPs that decisions on school closures will be made imminently as he was urged to step up the UK's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. He was speaking during Prime Minister's questions with the chamber less than half full after most MPs were told to stay away. Shortly after PMQs, the Welsh Education Minister announced schools there will be shut from Friday. And meanwhile, Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon says she expects schools to be closed by the end of the week and they could remain closed until the summer holidays. Mr Johnson said the government was being led by scientific evidence and needed to find the balance between containing the outbreak and not overwhelming the NHS.
We will do everything we can to remove burdens on schools, and Ofsted is one in particular that we can address, and the House should expect further decisions to be taken imminently on schools and how to make sure that we square the circle, both of making sure that we stop the spread of the disease, but also of making sure that we relieve as much as we can pressure on our NHS. We have stockpiles of PPE equipment and we are proceeding, it's very important for the House to understand this, we are proceeding in accordance with the best scientific advice, and it is the timeliness of those measures that is absolutely vital in combating the spread of the epidemic, and indeed that is how you save lives. And I'm delighted that the UK's approach has been commended not just by Neil Ferguson of Imperial College today, but also by Dr. David Nabarro of the World Health Organization.
In a moment, we'll be speaking to our economics editor, Ed Conway, with news from the new governor of the Bank of England. First, though, to our political correspondent, Kate McCann. And Kate, on the subject of school closures, we've heard from Wales, we've heard from Scotland. We're expecting to hear from the Education Secretary a little later on. What might that suggest?
That's right, we're expecting a statement in the House of Commons at around 5 o'clock today from the Education Secretary, and I think you can take from what Boris Johnson said in the House of Commons during Prime Minister's questions earlier today that they are actively now considering whether or not school closures do need to take place, perhaps more quickly than we had originally expected that they might. The Prime Minister yesterday in the daily press conference was clear that there are negative impacts of closing schools, not least that younger children who can shed the disease, who can pass it on even if they have no symptoms, would be in closer contact with grandparents. There is also a knock-on effect for those people who work in emergency services, the NHS and social care, etc. But there is a consideration about whether or not it is the only way now to ensure the spread of this disease is slowed down. We heard from the Welsh First Minister, we've also heard from Nicola Sturgeon in Scotland. She is suggesting that schools will be closed down by the end of this week. Now, she's interestingly saying that there is scientific evidence for that, and that will be advising her decision. We can hear from her a little bit earlier on today.
As people do the right thing and follow the advice to self-isolate or to isolate as a household, more and more schools are approaching a point where they have lost too many staff. The clearest guidance I can give now is that people should not assume that schools and nurseries will reopen after the Easter break. We will, of course, only keep them closed for as long as we absolutely have to. But at this stage, I cannot promise that they will reopen before the summer holidays.
And Nicola Sturgeon was saying in the wider clip that she was presenting there this afternoon that she is taking scientific advice from SAGE, and we know that that group is meeting at the moment. So the expectation is that if their advice is that schools and colleges, universities and childcare centres do need to close now, that is something that Boris Johnson will be following, because he has always said that he will be guided by evidence. One more thing to keep an eye on today, we know there's going to be another press conference from the Prime Minister, is the number of people being tested in the UK. That now will increase significantly. It was originally 4,000 people per day. The Prime Minister said they were ramping that up to 10,000. We now know it's going to be 25,000 people a day. The Prime Minister is saying it will still focus on those most in need inside hospitals, but they are trying to develop a test which would also show if you had already had the virus and you were in the community. There are lots of people who are self-isolating who are maybe not sure. They want to make sure that people know whether they have had it, so they know whether they need to self-isolate again, and also to check the spread of this disease throughout the rest of the country.
OK, Kate, for now, thanks very much indeed. Let's bring in our economics editor, Ed Conway. Ed, you've been speaking to the new governor of the Bank of England, who's described this not just as a global health emergency, but a financial emergency as well. What's he had to say?
Yeah, that's right, Sarah. I mean, it felt in many ways similar to the kinds of the tone of the conversations that many of us were having with the bank and other places back in 2008. If anything, more dramatic and frankly more depressing. You know, the way that Andrew Bailey described the state of the economy at the moment is, he said it is an emergency, and this is unparalleled what the economy is going through as a result both of the disease, of its spread, of people's concern, and the reaction that rightfully is being called for by health professionals, that people self-isolate, that they don't necessarily go into work, that they potentially, well, you heard about schools just now from Kate, you know, all of this stuff has a major impact across the UK economy in a way that the financial crisis didn't. And I asked the new governor, remember, he only took over on Monday. What a week to come into your first week in office to be this one. I asked him whether the bank would stop at anything, whether they would consider printing money. That's what they did during the financial crisis. Whether they would cut interest rates down to zero. They're as low as they've ever been at the moment. Could they go down to zero? And perhaps more radically still, some people think the bank should be printing money, and those kind of notes of money, not necessarily physically, but electronically being transferred to families around the country. It's about as radical as you get when it comes to monetary economics. And you know what he said? He said, we haven't ruled anything out. Everything is on the table. Really striking words for the Bank of England governor, underlining that there is more to come. He said the Bank of England's not done. We're not done yet. And why is he saying that? It's because, well, you look at the top left-hand side of the screen, you can see markets are down sharply today. Last night we had a big programme of measures from the Chancellor and indeed from the Bank of England, and yet markets are still falling. People are selling assets. The pound is at the lowest level that it's been against the dollar since 1985 at the moment. There is genuine fear and panic in markets right now, and traders want to see some sign that the bank and indeed the government are willing to take radical action to try to keep the economy on some sort of life support over the course of the next 6 months at least. So these are very torrid times, but the Bank of England governor telling us that he's ready to do anything, whatever it takes, to keep the economy going.
Ed Conway, thank you. Breaking news to bring you concerning the numbers of COVID-19 cases in the United Kingdom. They are at 2,626 confirmed positive cases in the UK. That's up from 1,950 yesterday, a rise of 676 coronavirus cases in the UK in the last 24 hours. A total of 56,221 people have been tested. Let's speak to our correspondent, Laura Bundock, now. Laura, the Prime Minister had warned at the beginning of this week that we were approaching the rapid acceleration point of the curve in this, and we're certainly seeing those numbers going up. However, those numbers are only reflecting those that are being tested. Yeah, that's right. We know at the moment not as many people are being tested as they hope to test in the future. Boris Johnson announcing today that he's intending that 25,000 tests should be carried out a day. That's not quite there yet, but these are big increases in the number of positive cases we are now seeing. So that's an extra 676 people testing positive. That's quite a big jump from the previous days, and as we know, the government has been warning that we are fast approaching the point where we will start to see a big increase in the rate of infections, and it seems this is being borne out by these figures. That's why the government brought in and changed its strategy, isn't it? Brought in the bigger measures to try and shield the most vulnerable in society, make sure that whole families are now isolating themselves so they can try and bring down, suppress the peak of the rate of infections as much as possible to try and delay it for as long as they can. So I think we're seeing now a real impact of the rate of infections going up. The increase in the number of tests will hopefully try and give them more information about who is getting the virus. The big question, though, as we've been hearing, is trying to develop the test which will let them know if someone has had the infection already, because that is crucial to understanding this virus and understanding who it's affecting, who it's not affecting, and where people are being affected and infected by this as well. It is the big global unknown at the moment, but I think as we start to see these sharp rises in the number of people being infected, it's more than likely now that the extra measures, those further measures that the government has warned us they are prepared to take, will now be taken. So we will get announcements later today about what those next steps can be, and having heard from Scotland and Wales today, school closures is of course the one thing everyone's now thinking about. Laura Bundock, thanks very much indeed. Let's go now to our correspondent Martin Brunt in central London, who has an update on COVID-19 contingency plans in the capital. What can you tell us, Martin?
Well, what you can see behind me is what we think is the first obvious evidence of an expansion of a mortuary. This is Westminster Coroner's Court. It has its own mortuary, but to deal with the expected number of deaths from COVID-19, the mortuary is being extended. This morning we've watched 20 or so workmen who've been here since breakfast time, who've been erecting what at the moment is still the shell of an expanded mortuary, but over the next day or so they're going to be moving in forensic equipment, cold storage equipment to expand the capacity here from 102 bodies to something like 170, maybe a bit more. It's happening here, but it's almost certainly going to be happening elsewhere, particularly in London. I mean, every major hospital has its own morgue. There are similar mortuaries to this attached to other coroners' courts in London, and planners are, it's thought, looking at all of those to see where there is capacity to improve capacity. And why London? Well, at the moment, of those 71 deaths that have been recorded, 25 of them were in London, and the anticipation is that however many people die from catching the virus, something like a quarter are expected to be seen in London. So huge pressure on mortuaries, morgues, where bodies need to be stored, but also the need to have capacity in the room to carry out forensic post-mortem examinations.
Okay, Martin Brunt, thanks very much indeed. I'm joined now by Dr. Simon Clark, a microbiologist at the University of Reading. Hello to you, Simon. We've just had those new figures from the Department of Health, as we do every day, a rise of more than 600 today. What does that tell us about where we are?
I think we're moving into the uptick phase where we see the daily increase get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think when I was with you yesterday, it was 400 and something extra cases that have been identified. Today, it's nearly 700. If you think about it, it's closer to 700 than it is to 600. So that's a fairly substantial day-on-day increase, and we're going to see more of that.
And that would explain what the Prime Minister was saying on Monday when we had these much tougher measures unveiled, that we were about to move into the rapid acceleration phase.
Exactly that. We're about to move into this rapid acceleration phase. The numbers will get bigger and bigger day on day. It's expected, and that's what the containment measures that the government will put in place are aimed at addressing. And I suspect maybe next week or the week after that we'll see even more come online.
Simon, we've got lots more we want to talk to you about this afternoon, but we are going to leave it just there because the Treasury Select Committee is just beginning hearing evidence from the Chancellor Rishi Sunak about what efforts are being made to support the economy, businesses and individuals through this pandemic.
We've now moved to a different approach, which is about really pushing down and levelling down on the virus. And as a consequence, it seems to me, the mood music seems to be that this could last rather longer in terms of the measures that we're having to take now to keep people safe. Do you have a sense of how long this is going to go on for? And do you have a sense of whether we are still, hopefully, in the position where when we come out of it, it's a V-shaped bounce rather than some permanent scarring to the economy which will take longer to recover from?
Well, thank you, Chair. And if I could just say at the outset, I thank the committee's understanding around timing. Just one update on that. There's now I think will be public reasonably soon, a meeting that I need to be at in an hour and a half, which means I need to leave a bit in advance of that to prepare for that. But I do thank everyone's understanding for that in light of the circumstances. With regard to your question on timing, the Prime Minister was asked a specific question at PMQs, and he said he wouldn't speculate on the precise timing, so I would echo that. But what I would say is you're right in a sense in that what we are doing now has some impact on the duration of the spread. The scientists are providing those updates on a daily basis, but we still believe that the virus will be something that does pass through. So we still believe that. We still believe that we should be able to recover strongly at the other side, and that's why our interventions are targeted at trying to preserve as much of that productive capacity of the economy as we can on the supply side. Obviously, the demand side impact is more difficult to mitigate in the short term, but that's why our approach has been very much to help bridge through the period of intervention, so that on the other side, as people are healthy, we can hopefully as quickly as possible return back to normal.
Okay, thank you. Very specific question. You're obviously trying to support our public services and the health service, which is going to be under great strain. Individuals and families, many of whom are going to lose their jobs, but also businesses who, of course, provide that employment. Very specific question. Is there any mileage in looking at some kind of reverse national insurance approach for jobs? In other words, rather than charging 13.8% to employers, actually pushing money back the other way, which would, I know, be colossally expensive, but equally highly targeted on preserving employment.
Yeah. What I'd say is we're looking at all potential measures to meet the objectives that we've set, which are to provide cash flow support to businesses and fundamentally to try and preserve employment and productive capacity in the economy. Now, there are a range of different ways to do that, and also ultimately to provide financial security for people as well. As I said yesterday in the statement, what we need to do is make sure that whatever delivery mechanism we choose, it's one that will be both able to be used very quickly, because time is of the essence, and also be as targeted as possible, acknowledging that it is not going to be perfectly targeted in these circumstances, and we accept and acknowledge that, but obviously it would still be better for it to be targeted where possible. Some of the tax levers that you mentioned, what the benefit of them is obviously scale, and you can move at scale, for better or worse, and at speed, but it is slightly more difficult to be targeted. But we are looking at every conceivable tool at our disposal as we speak.
Is that targeted in the sense that if you used reverse NIC, as I just suggested here, targeted because you want to go for particular sectors or particular businesses?
Whether it's particular sectors, whether it's potentially the size of the business, whether it's the salary of the person in question, what you're trying to target. So it might be that you're a very large company that's not particularly affected by this for whatever reason, or has a different employee base, is not one that you would want to target the resources on, and there are others, for example, in the retail and leisure sector and smaller companies where you absolutely do, and that's where our interventions have been strongest thus far. So it's just thinking about what we're trying to do. But obviously as the scale of what we're grappling with increases.
Carry on. That's my biggest concern. concern me.
Yeah.
It's not the fact that I won't be able to get to work, because if Carl's back, if Carl manages to get back home, or like Carl's sister, I imagine, because she works in a cafe, so I imagine that at some point that she won't be at work.
Yeah.
So then it's like, it won't necessarily be Harriet that becomes necessarily a problem for me to find, to have while she's at
It's the fact
school.
that they said avoid, blah 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 blah.
It's if everybody starts having to self-isolate, that's the problem.
They are doing now.
I know, but that's what I mean though, that's the problem, Michael. If Carl came back and then had symptoms, us as a family would then have to self-isolate, which means for 2 weeks
I will
I
see
wouldn't
you.
be able to come.
Well,
Because I wouldn't want to
probably not
miss
be
it.
a bad thing if you don't,
Well,
if you know what I mean.
I know, but then, Michael, what the problem is, if everybody else has to do it, this is where it becomes.
It's if we left to me and your mum, and no matter how bad we would have to come. Can't do that. Can't give it your son. But then you'd have to keep your distance.
And it's just becoming impossible. That's where I'm worried about it when it peaks like that.
Last week I was feeling a bit raw last week because I'm really tight. But I've no aches, no headache. I didn't even need to do the temperature because I didn't have a you know what I mean? You just die. It's the headaches, the temperature is the big one. Now, Jai was saying they're doing each other's temperature every day at Whiston, which is a good thing. At Whiston? At Whiston, at Winningshaw. Winningshaw? Winningshaw. Yeah. But it is, it's... Because I was saying, like, people who work in, you're in like care-homes and all that. What, like me?
No, yeah, well, I know, but it's just like, how do you even prevent that, though?
Well, Joy's been seeing her mum today.
Yeah, through window.
Through window. Let's just see that, right? What's going on?
See, I spoke to my dad a couple of days ago, and I told him not to come down to ours, and I wouldn't go and see him. Now, my dad he can look after himself, but he's got a dodgy lung with my dad. So that was what I had.
So he's one at like risk.
Yeah, he's not on any medication for it, but he's got a scar on his lung, and from having pleurisy years ago, but been hospitalised. That's your lungs, and they kind of it's caused damaged scar tissue in his lung. So when Dad gets a chest infection now, it gets it really, really severe. So I've just said, I'm going to keep away from you. No, it's not, because it's not as though I have to go in and do anything for him.
So Michael not do it, he's been self-isolated for like
no, it's not affect Michael.
I have though.
It wouldn't even know.
Somebody bringing it in.
But it's just that, you just kind of worry, don't you? You just think to yourself, God, like, if you are carrying anything around, you just don't even know.
As well, this self-isolates, especially for older ones, because they stay 12 weeks with them. But I suppose if you live in something like this, so because obviously, because where Michael's garden is, there's next door and there's them, you could at least be in the garden and have some contact with people and talk. You're not going to be totally isolated.
Yeah.
These are living in flats and apartments.
Oh, you will be isolated.
For example, alright, all folks home, they've got the company, but then again, because the amount of people that's in one room, there's more chance. And it needs somebody come. Alright, they said no. This is since last week. This. No. They're quite happy people coming in, obviously. But it's what about staff?
Yeah, I know, that's what it is.
I don't have to staff. It could be their husband, their wife, their kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could be a really nightmare. Like I say, it's the older ones mainly. But there's a kick-out contract in now in Manchester, isn't there?
Is there? Well, this is the worry with children, because they're not kind of showing any symptoms.
Well, they say with kids, when the kids have had it, they don't know, but our kids carrying it and passing it on, they don't know that.
Yeah.
They don't know. It's trying to get hold of somebody that's had it, but now okay, but trying to find out how has their body dealt with it, how have they got rid of it, if they've got an antibody, all this science, have they got an antibody that's done it, they test it, and if they could find something like that, then they might be on way for come out with a vaccine for this.
I know. Well,
But it's that finding it, and there's still so many open-ended questions that, and this is what I'm saying, when people say in Parliament to Johnson, and I'm not a politician fan, I'm not. But no once I listen where he's been saying this, I was slagging him off. Because he doesn't know the answer. There's two top, there's the head of medical, and then there's the scientific law. There's been 3 of them normally when they do it. Yesterday they had Chancellor on, didn't they? One of them that were doing, because they're doing these every day, this update. Which fair play as well. I'm not saying you know everything what's been said before they come out, so that's where it at. But nobody knows, alright, what they've pledged to do. They go 300 billion
You
for this
just
stuff.
don't even know, do you, like, how it's going to go?
And then, if we get, well, when we get through, we will get through it. How long? A month, 3 months, 6 months? That's the question nobody knows. And then it's like that, it's about the economy recovering. And there's going to be a lot of hardship.
Of course there is.
Hardship.
I said, when I was talking to my sister yesterday, I said it's going to be a bit like post-war. Like after the Second World War and stuff like that, where everything was like kind of where you had, that was it.
And we're not, well, I think social media, why people keep posting pictures of empty shelves.
Because they're showing how much are going so quickly.
What it does, it causes panic, so people are going out and back. Now, as it happens, your mum has done as long as I can remember. She goes shopping once a week, but then every month she'll go and she'll buy half a dozen, say, I don't know, squirties for glass, that sort of thing. Shampoos, soaps, so you're cleaning stuff. And she gets them from B&M.
Yeah.
It's like, because they're a lot cheaper.
Yeah.
They buy more up. So she's just done that for the sake of, and she's not minded. So when she goes in Asda, because you get a meat and veg and that. So when you go for food, she just goes in Asda and gets food. She goes B&M, but instead of keep going Asda and B&M every week, she'll do Asda every week, but she'll go B&M once a month. Well, so's law, isn't it? It's like, come to a time where...
I know. The thing is though, I mean, I've got...
We're going to have to go every week for a bloody tub of hand soap. We're going to have to go every week for a tub of hand soap. It is what it is.
Well, my friend, like, she lives in Spain, and at the minute, like, she said it's stupid because they're still allowed to go out to pick up supplies because inevitably people are going to run out of something.
Culture,
You know, it's like it has to be.
They've got to go out, otherwise you're going to end up with isolation. One in every other house is going to be 2 or 3 people dead because they've starved or this, that, or other.
Yeah, I know. This is it. So.
I know it not over a week, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, of course I do. And it's like, well, it's not that you end up with malnutrition. That's what I said. I was like, what, they go and eat a bowl of pasta for the tea every night? I said, are they not putting any ingredients?
Well,
I mean, what?
You think of it, where did it all start? Bog roll and pasta.
But the little shop where I live, there's no pasta in it. I was like, what nutters who live round here? I mean, they don't know even cook a meal in their life anyway, do you know what I mean? And they've all gone and just
I can't beat shop on Sunday when we were going out. That one, that one on Leroy.
What's his piece? Bag and beans.
Bag and beans, that's it. So they're on about something. He said, Tyler Roll. I said, that's not Tyler Roll. He said, we're fully back here. So well, those are that too, like, you might get broke into.
Well, that's what there is. There's pictures of people in there with like toilet roll on the back seat to the car, and it's saying, you know, you've been told before to hide your mouth and things.
Well, I did something yesterday. I want to get some shoes and that, some gold shoes, and Tom said, go to Tesco, big Tesco, Sports Direct.
There's none in there either.
Oh yeah, there is, yeah.
So I went Tesco, the big one at Leeds, to the Sports Direct.
Oh yeah.
So I guess these shoes.
Where's this one?
So I thought, right, when she came in on Sunday to start, I thought, I'll just have a walk on, mate. I mean, it's massive, that big Tesco. She ain't seen it. So anything to do with cleaning. It's like, I've also said it. So I got two little tubs, you know, hand wash.
Yeah.
And as they go, think of others, 2 per customer.
Yeah.
I got 2. I think there were 3 left when I got 2. Shelves as long as this bloody room, not longer. Sanitizer, all that, were gone. I weren't getting any, just leave. And then there's these, you know, like your wet wipes.
Oh yeah.
You have them bacterial wipes, don't they?
Yeah.
About 4 packets, and this bloke was working his head. Mate, 2 hours ago, that shelf was full.
Really?
So it's mental. So George with Asda today. Get some veg in rather than
2 meat and veg.
So what Asda are doing now, and I think if you were doing it as well, there's 24 hours is stopping.
Yeah.
So they're shutting at 10 for the foreseeable.
Yeah.
And opening again, I think it's 6.
Yeah.
And then they read it so they can stop. She said, still getting deliveries coming in, so they can stock them because they can't. They're stocking them. People are going mad.
Yeah. Yeah, but well, they can clean as well and just kind of keep on top of everything, I suppose.
Is it Aldi or Iceland? One of them last week announced.
I think was it Iceland who are opening for elderly?
And I think that's a good move.
Well,
it's a shit. It's very sad
I know.
that they're asked to act.
But this is what I meant with the co-op. Like, you know, the fact that you just completely sold out of stuff. It's like, but the little old dears who live in that village, who probably don't drive. That's like the means, you know.
Yeah. Oh, it's
terrible.
So it looked like a bloody war breaking with half of these lot out here.
That's what they're on about. So I won't do a protest. But not happening.
You won't do what?
Protest, but not
I can't do a protest because everybody's in self-isolated.
Have you not seen my fundraising page? I've sent you.
Yeah, you should be doing that.
Yeah.
I've explained to Michael that there's no way that people are going to be raising funds at the minute. It's going to be a case.
Every little helps, darling.
Yeah, but what are you going to do it if people donate? What are you going to do with money?
It says it on there.
Yeah, but I keep telling you about this. You shouldn't do that, Michael. You're not a registered this, there, or other. But you've done it. I'm telling you not to do it.
What?
That's what you did, that donate thing.
Yeah, well, I'm helping my country. Alright. Thank you.
Governments and all these other countries are now doing that. Governments do that.
Well, the guy who's in charge of bank, he's only been in his position for a week, can't he?
Poor sod.
First week of work. Apparently he's dealt with it like...
Well, they can't go do another budget.
Really?
This budget, what's been done, it's been basic. They've not said it, it's like null and void. Because everything's got tits up since they've done it because of all this. They're even, there's people saying things like having a holiday period for that.
And that?
Business rates. Taxes and all that.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you work in like the hospitality, so hotels, cafes, restaurants, you're going to be off. If you're off now, you're going to be off before weekend, I would have thought.
But I mean, there's my sister works in a cafe and she was like saying they've set up a delivery service. So, you know, it's not that you've got many like menus and you can kind of ring up and place your orders and they'll start looking into delivery hours. Don't normally do. It's like, so to Vicky, what if everybody's not working? I would never think, like, you're not going to think, do you know what? This week I think I'm just going to spend what I could buy like for like 2 days.
Yeah, because you can get it, you can buy it a lot cheaper, can't you? You know, you buy a pack of bacon and a loaf of bread.
That's what I'm saying.
What's that going to cost you the equivalent of going to a cafe?
Yeah, and it's like I said to Vicky, there's no way that I'm going to ring up and ask you to send me a jacket of potato and cheese and deliver it to my door. I'm gonna make it myself because chance it's going to cost me half the price. So even though you're trying to kind of keep your business running by providing a service for people, it's the fact that people are not going to want to provide with the cash what's going to have a knock-on effect.
Well, I did. He just bought a bungalow.
Was it?
Going through.
Bungalow?
Yeah, so many days.
Joking. How come?
It's because of that, innit? That's why I bought a little bungalow.
No, they've got enough room for us.
Well, they're right corner from where I live, Flat Street. Platform Road.
I like that garden.
What shops that?
I like that big garden.
They do. But it's quite the Auntie's going. She struggles getting upstairs now.
We'll help her.
Who's with Michael? Who's we help her? You don't even take your bloody cup into the kitchen.
You can't even get upstairs yourself.
I would, if I'm being paid.
You got
for
that
it.
mountain.
Don't even talk about that.
What's that? Alright, so you've just said the long match. Yeah, we're ready. We're going for a running on it now, probably.
There's a fight chance Christine's coming at 12.
I was just going to say Christine's on route coming at 12. For Michael.
Taking me out, I don't know where.
Oh, right, well, or is it on Sunday?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was right. Because I was going to mention to Michael, because I'm back in on Friday.
Right.
So I was going to mention to Michael today if there was anything that he had in mind for a thing. Well, if Christine's doing it, it's there, so it's fine.
Just didn't get her a card, that's all. All we didn't get is round cards, you get through it. And then we're out on Sunday, I don't know. Will be Mother's Day, normal Mother's Day. We'll not be able to see Grandma. We might just have a ride and just do, say, 5 minutes of wind.
It'll just be all families outside to call for now.
You can go if you want.
They're really struggling to get to windows.
What I'm saying of it, Sundays it's normally a good day for pubs and restaurants and all that.
And everything like that, like you said, all hospitality.
We'll just be stopping it.
Yeah. A girl I used to work with, she now is like, it's a Joseph Hall pub that she runs.
Oh, yeah.
Her and her family love it. So like, people stop going in, she's at risk of not only losing like a job, but like where she lives too.
I think, well, you know, that's not really what everything's talking. So for that example, if you think of that logically, right, some people stop running because of what's happened. So we kick you out, it's going to be all day.
That's what I mean, it's like, it's crazy.
Now me, if I had something like that, if I had a string of that and it went, alright, it's working crap, this will lose money, we might have to let people off. But am I losing anything? Is it costing me any more by...
It's costing you loads of things.
Somebody's still living in.
No.
It's not costing you that much.
Actually, that was... Oh, I thought what she thought was irrelevant. There's a law, she's saying, getting onto courts to work prevention to the... So there's... Well, she was saying that 2 people in her constituency were due to be evicted. So there's a procedure in court, so they still have to go and down on these numbers and records. So, because you said that, you won't be able to stop these at the minute, suspend them for a minute. And he said these are slip things and so on. So anything that's going through an eviction, whether the landlord's in right or wrong, it looks like they'd be staying.
I mean, like you said, I mean, they can't just go around evicting everybody who's in that position because that just causes a problem. But it's just kind of like when I was talking to Catherine, she was like, it's just a worry. It's just a worry of what will actually happen and how long is it going to be.
Yeah, but a building's better for somebody being in it than it being unoccupied. For newer streets, it's alright to be maintained to a degree. Or if it's empty, it's more prone to ever being broken and this there.
I know, and this is what we've been saying. And it's not just that. I mean, once things start to lift, you'd want somebody there to kind of to get the business back up and running anyway, without having to look around for something.
There's a point there. I thought maybe the people who like manageresses and books and that live above, live with them. I can't see I couldn't see any big businesses doing that because as soon as that website's on news, it only takes one. But I've been evicted by this is who I work for, and I live there in Shaw. I just think it gets slagged off so much.
Of course, the budget.
You know what? You can forget how good your ale is, very cheap. We're not going there again. It's off.
But these are things that people read and concerned.
There's a million and one things in them. There's a million and one things that it's going to affect. And I think some things day by day, I just think the government and the courts need to act quickly with all our things, but sensibly. Even now, cases that think are going to last more than 3 days be suspended.
I bet Zina's got it. She's going on a bit.
So anybody who's got a case going to something for ultimate, they'll have to spend a bit longer inside, won't they? So all cases that they think, and this was yesterday, if they think it's going to last more than 3 days, they've been suspended. Current cases that are on now, they want them finished. Yeah, these come in, they're only a day out, the cases and one thing and another. And then there's been somebody tested positive from a prison somewhere.
Yeah.
So we're having prisoners. What about prison inside? I mean, with some of them, I'd just give them an injection anyway. I won't. Seriously, I won't.
No.
There are others that are inside that they might not be best. You like little rules, this, that, and all that. Yeah, alright, fine. I'm not. It's too. Well, I am. You paedophiles and rapists and that for me, they shouldn't go on anymore. You got folk using different, like Ashworth, for example. That's a prison, but that's a mental one as well, isn't it?
Yeah. But I mean, like, as well, when she's just because that's good.
Well, I think, I don't know what it is. For me, I don't see they cannot cancel the exams, postpone them.
Yeah.
They don't. Well, I said this at the beginning of the week. I said, who were in school? I said, here. I said, nobody's mentioned a couple of things. Well, I said, one exams. They're not going to work. I said, two. It should be good for kids, and I don't think kids have took it on this yet. They've not been on school for that.
Is that a leave?
That's a leave.
Well,
we don't have this.
What about the work though? The last bit of work? Huh?
Just living all props.
What about the last bit of work though? For the kids and stuff? Oh, they've still got a bit of work left before they leave.
So,
aren't
well, it's a knock-on effect. It's not just schools. Nobody's mentioned colleges and unis. Because they all come around at the same time. So we've got a few student teachers who this is the last bit now. They should be finished and signed and ticked off. And they're going to get signed and ticked off.
Work from home if they can.
And you've got to have someone that's working.
Work from home if they can. Dad, work from home if they can.
Everybody can. I can't do
well, they're always struggling now then, won't they?
So you've got your colleges, and obviously, well, schools, then colleges, and then uni. So they've all been suspended, because actually said they've been suspended. So they've done what whoever have to do, I think, is you can submit what you call projected grades.
Is that like an estimate?
An estimate. I don't know. But still need the exams. But they have said all the kids will get the grades that they deserve. Now I think personally it's postponed. How to work out nor a Scooby-Doo, but come September, check that far off. I mean, this is carrying on. This could be going on to September. Past it. So you've got your new intake, your year 7's coming in. Obviously, it's a knock on. Everybody moves up a step on there. You'll have your kids who's applying for certain colleges. They won't have the grades up there because they won't have done the bloody exam. How do you do that? I've no clue. I just say, right, look, we'll have to find somewhere and we'll have to do their exams in September.
I think that's what we're meant
October.
to do, something like that, and also because you can revise it or you can do courses.
You can do a lot at all, but will they end up doing, well, alright, do another month of revision sessions in school? But then you've got to have the teachers who have got these kids that do revision that really should have been done now, they should be in unit. Do you get what I mean? It's a total minefield for the kids, for health and education. And thankfully, really, it's only 1 year group, isn't it?
I know.
Well, it's 3. If you're looking at effect, it's 3. You've got your 11s, your year 13s, which is your college, and then those that end as a unit. So I don't know. They might end up saying, right, because one rejected it, give up that. I don't know.
I mean, they might, I don't know, like you said, I mean, at least with coursework and things like that, because that coursework does create for a large percentage, whereas that can be marked, can't it?
Well, there's only, not every subject to coursework.
No, not every subject.
So, I don't know, how they do like online classes. Could that be done? So you have to be in your living room and you can log on and then you can... No, set up something where, so you as a teacher, you're at home or at school, but you're in a room on your own, and all students need to be logged on at their age, so, do you get what I mean? So you can see, I don't know.
It's still dead dodgy though, isn't it? Like...
Do you know if they're still there and they're logged on and actually they've gone back then?
That's what I mean, it's dead dodgy, isn't it? You just don't know, do you?
You know what I would have done? Years ago.
For a lot of it as well, I mean, there is an element of responsibility for students and the parents, but it could be literally, it's probably been a 50-50. This is about an 80-20 now, and 80% new students for all parents to commit to this, because you've got to be in front of your screen, you've got to be doing this, you're not being like in a class, oi, come here, sit there and get it done. You can't do that if you're on the line, can you?
I know Harriet's school have said that they're going to send like tasks to complete online.
Yeah.
What? Where?
Oh, he's probably sulking now. Because you've done his eyes. Yeah.
Spelled X on your bed, mate.
It's alright. He likes that bed there, George. No, because, and he licks you to death, wakes you up with tablets, and then that's it. Can't go back to sleep then.
Right, I'll see you tomorrow, both of you.
Both of us.
I'll see you next week, man. She goes.
Good luck with that. She might have coronavirus, she might be 6 feet under.
No, days to overnight. Everybody wishing it.
No, I won't wish it. No, I won't wish it. No, don't worry.
See ya.
See ya. What are you doing now, you thief? What? So hello, wasn't it? What are you doing now?
What?
Did you have sauce?
Yeah, it was that. Ta-da! It was trapped in it, it couldn't open the door again.